Hi everybody. Well, I have a trip I have to plan, and it's different really than any other trip I've taken. It's a very, very personal trip. So, as you probably know, recently, before my surgery, my stepfather, who was married to my mother for 25 years, passed away of cancer. And the 20 of the 25 years they lived together, they were in Nova Scotia. 5 years they were here in Ottawa. That's where they met. And my dad had long since passed away when they had met as well. But he passed away, and when they were in Nova Scotia, they actually originally moved down to Nova Scotia to look after my grandmother, my mother's mother. She was in need of personal care and someone to assist her. Now, she's a very independent lady, amazing lady. At one time, they told my sister and I that when she was in the hospital that we better get down there because she's probably not going to make the weekend. So I went and picked up my sister, drove all the way to Nova Scotia, and yeah, she lived another 8 years. So just lets you know what kind of family I'm born into, folks. We're pretty darn stubborn that way. We don't like to disappear without a fight. So, but anyway, my stepdad passed away, and we have a plot in Nova Scotia where my grandmother is in one spot, and beside her is my mother, and then Gary has a spot beside her. And his wishes were, his kids live in different areas, some in Toronto, etc. And we always ask him, where does he want his final resting place to be? And he's always said, right up until the last day, that, he wants to be beside my mom in Nova Scotia. So that's the trip I have to plan. Now, the one trouble is, I've just come off surgery. There's been a couple complications, nothing too serious, just a little leakage and stuff like that. I've had to have, another ultrasound and x-rays to make sure it's not leaking inside, but I seem to be okay. I am very weak right now, but I'm trying to build up my strength. And then we have our group cruise coming up in September, on September 19th. So we're leaving on the 18th to head down to New York for our cruise back to Canada. Trouble is, we have to do this also before October because the ground becomes too hard in Nova Scotia. They can't open to lay him to final resting place. So I have to get there before we go on our group cruise, which gives me just over 5 weeks. Currently, one of my nephews and his family are heading down to Elliott Lake where they live, and they're going to, visit their father and their mother and visit the area. That's where he was raised and stuff like that. But I'm hoping that he'll be able to drive my sister back, because here's the rough layout of where I have to go. I live here in Ottawa, Canada. She lives over here past Sudbury, and we're going to way over here in the far corners of Nova Scotia. So if I have to drive down to pick up my sister and then drive back to Ottawa, well, that's 2 days of traveling before we even really start the trip. And I don't know how long I can drive during the day. So I've been investigating different options. I've been looking at flying down. I've been looking at taking a train down, and in either way, we end up having to rent a car and that while we're down there because we have to travel to different towns. And it doesn't look like it will be a cheap trip. I think the cheapest I've come across is around each one comes close to $4,000 without any hotels, without any food, without any rental car yet. That's just either airfare or either train to get there. So obviously it's much cheaper if I drive. And I could probably drive, not too big a deal, if I don't have to do that part of the trip to start off, right? Even if it took me 3 days to drive to Nova Scotia instead of my normal day and a half, maybe full day of full driving, which I used to do. But, you know, gas and a couple nights hotel is far cheaper than $4,000. Because we do have different areas we are going to go. We're going to go to visit and obviously lay my stepdad to rest. And then I'm sure while we're in Nova Scotia, my sister and myself included will want to go and visit my dad in another town, Spring Hill, Nova Scotia, where he's laid to rest, and pay our respects there as well. So it's going to be interesting to try and get all this done before I have to go on the next group cruise, and then all the other cruises lined up after that. Like I said, I'm still very weak right now, so I don't know about driving all that distance. Now, we're talking at least 2 weeks from now, which means I may, be a lot stronger in the next 2 weeks than I am currently, right? I've only been out of the hospital a week, so things can build up a lot easier. I have literally started a strength training routine, and I used to be able to do, I'd get up, I'd do some work in the morning, do some videos and everything, and then I'd go out and I'd do my 10,000 steps in the morning before I start anything, and I'd get my 10,000 steps in during the day, and then I'd finish whatever else I had to do. So I'd be done by like 10 o'clock in the morning, my steps. Well, I can't get through 10,000 steps in one sitting right now. There's no way. I have been able to hit 10,000 steps in a single day, but I've had to attempt it like 5, 6 different times during the day. That's how I'm building up my strength and my stamina. I'll get up and I'll do some walking, walk for 10, 20 minutes, and then rest. And that's how I slowly build up my strength. As well as that also helps to stimulate, your system, your bowels, etc., etc. Then they say that's terrific. I asked my doctor's permission, absolutely, and so that's the way I'm going for there. So who knows? But a real personal trip coming up. I haven't been to Nova Scotia since my mom passed away, and Gary and my sister Diane moved into Ontario. So I'm a little excited about it, to visit my home province again. I'll be there on the group cruise, but I have to go there for some personal business ahead of time. I only hope I can do it as inexpensive as possible. And because now if I'm really tired all the time and I don't think I can drive, I'm not going to take a chance. I will fly, or I will take the train with a cabin for 2, and it'll take us longer to get there. It'll be more expensive, but we're not going to endanger ourselves. So, but yeah, this is my stepdad's final wish, and come hell or high water, I'm going to make sure his wish and his final thing he wanted us to do for him is to reunite him with my mother.